I just wanted to come to you guys really quickly and talk to you about my experience in Honduras. That was like the most asked question in my last video, but I'm gonna break it down to you right now real quick, real fast. My phone is on 15%. Let's see if we can do it in 15 seconds. So I went to Honduras in September with my co-worker. We both had time off because we work for the same company and we had a company holiday or whatever. So we decided that we were going to take a quick trip down to Honduras. She's from Honduras. I like to travel, so I was like, let's go. So we went. We're having a good time. We killing it, shaking it, shaking it. And we stayed at the capital, Tegucigalpa, and we stayed at a hotel. I'm not going to mention the hotel's name because there's like, you know, I'm not trying to start no drama. We were there for 4 days. We had a great time. Like I said, we visited the Basilica Tegucigalpa. We visited the church, you know, did some exploring. We went to Hollywood and all of these really nice, beautiful places, and the people were nice and the weather was good, and, you know, we had a good time. And so when it was time to go, we were packing up our stuff, and I picked up my passport and I noticed that it felt really light. And so I'm like, that's weird. And then I flipped it over and the entire back half was missing. I opened it and my photo page was missing. I did not use the safe in hotel. I know, I should have. I get it. I got it. Lessons learned. What I usually do whenever I go on vacation, I've been traveling, I've been in the game for a minute. And usually what I do with my passport is I tuck it in my socks or in my underwear. Like I roll it up and I put it like in the bottom of my suitcase and I just leave my suitcase as is. I have a safe phobia. Like I just have a fear that I won't ever get it back open, or I have a fear that someone knows the code, or like I watch a lot of spy movies and a lot of criminal shows, and I feel like they'll be able to put the stethoscope thing up to the thing and know like what the number is that I put in there. I can't. So I didn't use the safe. I realized that was my mistake, but someone had gone into my suitcase and they had stolen pages of my passport. Not the whole passport, or not like, they just took a few pages out. And so I immediately panicked, but it was a calm panic because I knew I was in trouble, but I also knew that there was nothing I could do about it at the same time. So it was a combination of fear and also we were packing to get ready to go to the airport. So I called my mom. My mom was, I want to say, immediately hysterical. She was also at work. There was like a time difference as well. I can't even really remember. This is actually the first time I'm actually talking about this story, and this is actually the first time I'm talking about it without crying or getting emotional or whatever. So thank you for listening. I'm gonna try to speed this process up. Anyway, so I don't really remember what my mom did or said, but I just remember her just jumping into action. So she's telling me to call the police and all this stuff, and so we go down to the hotel reception and we're like, hey girl, missing this. And they're like, oh my eye, when did you realize that this happened? I was like, girl, I looked at my passport every day, like every night, just as a check, because I knew it was in there. Face up, the passport looks fine. It didn't look like anything was missing or going wrong. So perhaps I would say, if you're going to live this type of life, maybe pick it up, flip through it, make sure it's all there. Because even though I was checking up on it, face up, it looked fine. It looked like a normal passport, but, you know, it wasn't. And so they were like, when did you notice it was gone? And I was like, it's been there the whole time. And so they had to do this whole investigation. And all while this is happening, we're still trying to catch a flight. So I'm trying to figure out how I can get a passport, how I can get home. Because at this point, I just want to go home. They're telling us they can't call the police. They're afraid to call the police because if you don't know about corruption in poor countries like Honduras, you know, if you don't know, the police usually are involved in a lot of what goes on in countries like that. And so they were reluctant to call the police. My mom insisted on calling. I think my mom tried to call. It was a lot. It was a lot. And we were all, at this point, like, just very scared. We didn't know what happened. They were trying to figure out if it happened in the hotel. I explained to them that my passport didn't leave the hotel. So we were just, you know, trying to figure it all out. They printed the key card log to see, like, when we used our room key versus when the hotel staff used their room key. And there was, like, a bit of overlap that we noticed. Again, I really don't want to get into the hotel fault in it, but there was a bit of an overlap. There were times where they came into our room back to back consecutively. There were times where as soon as we left, they came in and we didn't see them. There were times when they came at late hours, like after 4, and I'm telling the man, the hotel guy, he was really nice. He was really patient. He was really trying to work with us and try to get us home safely. And they were accommodating and helping us get to each point that we needed to get to after that, because I needed to get an entire new passport. I needed to get to the embassy. I needed to get passport photos taken twice. And they were all like accommodating, and they kept us for our stay for the remaining time that I needed to be there in order to get my new passport, because the embassy, I don't know if you noticed, they run regular business hours, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. And this was over a weekend. Finally, you know, we get to the bottom of it, but there's nothing that they can do. And there's nothing I care about them doing at that point. At that point, I wanted to go home. I didn't sleep right. I wasn't eating. I had an entire attitude. I had the only attitude. I had the tude of the truth. I was mad at everybody and everything. I was mad. I felt abandoned. I felt alone. I felt scared. I felt afraid. And when you're away from home, it's one thing, but when you're in another country where you don't speak the language, and when you don't feel safe, it's very difficult. It's very challenging. And so, again, no one's fault but mine. I'm not blaming anyone. So we finally made it to the embassy. We had to wait until the next day because, again, it was over the weekend. We went to the embassy. Signing paperwork, and they're like, oh, your passport photos are the wrong size. Bruh. So then I had to go to passport, but I'm doing all of this in broken English, like broken Spanish. Like, I don't know how to say, where do I get a passport photo taken in Spanish? No comprende. Tienes ¿cómo se dice? Girl, I had no clue. I made like 4, 5 trips in and out of the embassy. First of all, just tips about the U.S. Embassy. You can't bring nothing in there. I don't know how they expect you to get anything done if you can't bring nothing in there. You can't bring your phone, your wallet, your keys, your ID, nothing. So, just a heads up. So the cab driver had originally dropped us off. These details aren't important. Finally, I get the right size photos. I go back in, sign all the paperwork, get it all stamped, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. So much had gone on in the embassy. And again, it's that moment of like fear and you just want to go home. I just wanted to go home so bad. And then they had to call me in for an interview. This little mini deposition thing that I was prepared for. I am an American, but to have to prove that, and like, I was just distressed. Oh, I was wearing this sweater. Oh my God. Yeah, they went way, way back. And they went so far back that I was starting to forget. I thought I was going to forget the answers because it was like, where did I go to high school? Like, it was just like, it was questions like, what was your first mailing address? And I'm just like, oh my God. It's stuff like you don't even remember that you knew at some point. And so, and it's questions like that. Those weren't the questions. I'm not trying to air nobody's embassy laundry. Like, girl, you gonna be on your own taking a test. I don't know. I can't help you. So I basically pretty much just had to prove my citizenship to my country, and then they gave me a temporary passport which was valid for up to a year or 2 years, but they told me do not wait that long. My only situation was right after I got back from Honduras, I was going to London, and so I needed my passport to get there. And I had already booked that trip, so it's not, at the time I didn't know that I could travel with a temporary passport for that long, and nor do you want to. If you do have a temporary passport, you do want to make sure that you get your permanent passport as soon as possible, because you get flagged so much at the airport. You get flagged, you get alarmed, you get alerts. First of all, the passport is red. It says emergency passport on every single page in red. It's just, you don't want that. You don't want that trouble. Every customs border that I went to when I traveled with that passport, it was a problem. It was questions that I wanted to go home. And they ask you those questions everywhere you go. It's not just at the customs. They ask you at the gate. They ask you at check-in. They ask you, you can't scan it like a regular passport. It's just, And I know it's for my safety, but I'm just warning you that if you are in a situation where you have a temporary passport, please make sure that you get your permanent passport immediately, which is what I did as soon as I got back from England. I sent all my documents out. You have to send it through the USP at the post office because the government has to track government mail or whatever, which is really great because they give you a tracking number and you're able to keep up with your passport at all times. They told me it would take 6 to 8 weeks. It took way shorter than that, and I'm so incredibly grateful because I almost paid the extra to expedite it, but I thankfully didn't have to. Basically, I made it home. It was a lot. I was challenged the most at that moment because you just feel some sort of fear and abandonment that I'd never felt before. I didn't know I could feel those feelings. Is pretty much how I was feeling. I was just like, oh my gosh. And it got to a point where I started to call people and tell them I love them. Like I wasn't sure that I would see them again. It was legit like the end all. It felt like, oh, I'ma just be Honduran from here on out. It was tough. It was tough. And I'm just making this video to update you, but also warn you about travel precautions that you want to take. One of the suggestions that was made to me was to carry a scanned copy of your passport on you at all times, because I didn't want to bring my passport with me because I was afraid that it would get stolen or I would get robbed or whatever. I don't know. And so I was afraid that it would be more safe at the hotel than it would be with me. But, you know, if you don't want to carry your entire passport around, lock it away in your safe, carry a printed copy of it with you at all times, and two, carry a digital copy of it. Email yourself a picture of your passport. Because, for example, if you take a photo of it, you can't bring your phone nowhere to prove your whatever, but they might let you use their computer though. What's the Wi-Fi code, bruh? Let me show you my passport, fam. It's in my email. La, 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 la. Secondly, if you are traveling with any plastic, meaning debit or credit cards, make sure you lock those away too, girl. Okay. And if you are experiencing some sort of identity theft, scare or whatever, make sure that you are monitoring your cards if you don't want to cancel them. I didn't have time to cancel no cards, and I probably should have. I had to learn that later on down the road. I also had to cancel my Facebook because of this whole situation, because like I said, it's a lot. So I'm gonna see y'all next week. Oh, this video is gonna be up on Christmas. Merry Christmas, my gift to you. I love ya. I love ya. I love ya.